Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in my quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's awesome to have you guys here on what is, in the United States, Memorial Day. Being Memorial Day, I decided to give the rest of the crew off, and we weren't going to do a show today, but I got so many emails from you guys saying, John, you don't understand. You got to do a show, because if you don't do a show on Monday, I'm going to have to hang out and talk to my in-laws. So please do a show. So for you, I am here to serve you. For you, we are doing a show here today, but it's going to be me solo. Kind of like the old days back when I started the John Campea Show. Here it was just me, and now it's just going to be me today as all the other guys take the day off. And it's good to have you guys here. We got a number of things we need to talk about here. But first off, I'm going to let you know this. We're going to start off by talking about a few predetermined topics. Then in the second half of the show, it's all about you. I'm going to take your live comments and questions. If you have a comment, question, thought, observation, you guys can send it in using our tip link by going to www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. And as long as your thought, theory, question, and opinion is appropriate to be used on the show, we'll read it off. So you guys can go ahead and send that in, and we'll get around to it a little bit later. All right. Good to have all you guys here. We're going to start things off here with this. Have any of you guys heard of Netflix? Yeah, Netflix it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big thing. But one of the problems with Netflix is that while they have really good shows, I mean, Netflix makes really good shows, not quite as good as HBO or Apple TV Plus, but Netflix has got a really good track record with making their series. What they don't have a good track record of is making their movies. 98% of the movies that Netflix makes are total junk and garbage, cluttering up the feed. So when a good one does kind of come out, we tend to miss it. Well, at a recent event, Netflix head honcho, Ted Sarandos, was asked by a reporter saying, hey, you guys just appointed a new film division head. Are you going to start cutting back on the amount of movies you're going to make? You know, one of the big criticisms of you guys put quantity way over quality. And Ted Sarandos said something really interesting. By interesting, I mean stupid. He said this. He goes, I don't agree with the premise that quantity and quality are somehow in conflict with each other. We've had, by the way, Ted, yes, it is. Anyway, we've had 8 Best Picture nominees in the last 5 years on Netflix. Our movie programming has been great, but it's just not all for you, and it's not meant to be all for you. Our movie programming is great. It's just not meant to all be for you. It's not meant to be, all for you. All right. I want to address this because a buddy of mine texted me the other day about this quote, because this quote just came out the other day, and he said, he's right. Quantity and quality aren't diametrically opposed. And my thought on that is, I think sometimes that's true. I think it's sometimes you can have both quantity and quality. It is possible to do that. But I believe that most of the time, you got to generally pick which one you're going to prioritize, right? I'm not saying you have to only pick quality, because if you only picked quality, you do your one best movie and that's it, right? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you've got to pick which one you're going to prioritize. Are you going to prioritize quantity, or are you going to prioritize quality? You can have a bit of both, but which one are you going to prioritize? And I would suggest to you that Netflix has prioritized consistently quantity. Now, Ted Sarandos pointed out that Netflix has had Best Picture nominees, and they have. They've had 9 of them. 9 Netflix films have gotten, none of them have won, but 9 of them have gotten a prestigious Best Picture at the Academy Awards nomination. But at what quantity ratio? So let's take a look. Netflix films, the 9 of them that have been nominated for Best Picture: Maestro, Roma, The Irishman, Marriage Story, Mank, Trial of the Chicago 7, Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up shouldn't have been nominated, but I did like it. I liked it anyway. Power of the Dog, All Quiet on the Western Front. These are great movies, right? Whether or not you think each single one of them should have been nominated for Best Picture, that's up to your individual taste, but these are all great movies. Nobody is denying that Netflix has put out over the years some great movies, but at what quantity, right? Because great, 9 Best Picture nominees. All right. In 2023, Netflix put out 156 what they would be called original, either self-produced or distributed films. 156. In 2022, they put out 173. In 2021, they put 154. Roughly over the last 5 years, they've averaged about 155 movies per year, roughly working out to give or take somewhere around the 750 to 800 movies in the last 5 years. Now, that includes a lot of different kinds of movies, right? That'll include some documentaries, that'll include foreign films. Like, it includes a lot. There's a lot there. But in the last 5 years, roughly about anywhere between 750 and 800 films. Yes, Ted, you've put out a number of Best Picture nominees. I would like to put forward that if my next door neighbor put out 900 films, then maybe 1% of them he might get lucky and get a Best Picture nomination out of it. I'm not saying their Best Picture nominations have all been out of pure luck. I'm not saying that. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying your ratio to success is not so good. Now, look, one of the things that Ted says that I can completely get behind is that not every movie is for you, right? All film is, after all, subjective. And while I would concede that in the pure flood of Netflix films, that some people might like some and a bunch of people might not like it, and then there'll be another film that maybe a bunch of people don't like, but some people do, and all that kind of stuff. But I think you would find en masse that even people who like the odd dumpster fire movie that Netflix puts out, people would acknowledge the vast majority of films that Netflix put out are garbage. They're absolute trash. And here's why that becomes a problem. It becomes a problem because they put out all these movies, right? None of them get the marketing attention. I mean, Netflix is notorious for putting out stuff that none of us have even ever heard of, or putting out stuff that we didn't even know was coming out, right? They put out such a glut of content that basically 2 things happen. One, good films, when you do have the odd good one, good films get lost in the mix. And number 2, you're going to get a lot of average viewers like me who won't even give most Netflix movies a chance because 95% of your movies are garbage. Quantity and quality are not opposed. Of course they're opposed. Let me put it this way. Let's say Netflix had a mandate that we were only going to put out 30 films a year, which, by the way, is more than any other studio. But let's say Netflix gave themselves a mandate, right? And that mandate was 30 films a year. Okay. Then that would mean that Ted and his generals would probably be a little bit more picky and decide, okay, we've got a limit of 30 films per year. You know what they would do? They would pick out the best 30 films that they think the audience would enjoy, right? They would pick out of that hundreds of films that they've got in front of them, hundreds of projects they could possibly do or pick up. They're going to probably pick what they think are the 30 best. That means number 31, not good enough. Number 32, not good enough. Number 47, not good enough. Number 89, not good enough. Only these 30 are good enough to be on Netflix. And what you start to do is you develop a bit of a reputation for excellence. Apple TV right now does not put out a lot of stuff, but my God, when they put out stuff, 90% chance it's going to be awesome. So their reputation right now is that everything they put out, you probably want to give a shot to, because most likely you're going to like it. You're not going to like everything, but most likely you will. So when Ted and his band of merry men decide to increase, say, we're talking fictitiously here, expand 30 films to 40 films, where now there's 10 films that before would not have been considered good enough to put on Netflix, and they go, let's just throw it on anyway. And now the overall average of the quality of your films has come down because you added those 10. Well, now instead of 40, they're going to put out 70. That's 30 more films that just when they were limiting themselves to 30, they would have thought this isn't good enough to be on Netflix. This isn't good enough for our viewers. Now it's like, just throw it on. Now the overall average quality of your film have dropped even more. And then from 70, they go, let's put up 170 in a year. Well, that's 140 films that they wouldn't have considered good enough for their audience or good enough for their service. Now it's just like, just put it on. So you had a certain average quality when you had 30 films. You had another 140 of them, your average quality has dropped. Your good movies get lost in the mix, and you develop a reputation that basically your films are garbage. So yes, every once in a while, you come out with an exceptional Mank, or an exceptional Trial of the Chicago 7, or an exceptional Roma, or whatever, but a lot of the good films you make, and you don't make a lot of them, will just get lost in the mix, and then you'll get some people like me that are just like, almost every Netflix film is total garbage. Why would I go give this one a try? Until I hear from other people that's good. So basically, Ted, because we know Ted is watching. By the way, I got a lot of respect for Ted Sarandos. Don't get me wrong. I'm disagreeing with him on this topic, but I have a lot of respect for the guy. But I'm just saying, yes, Ted, there is a contradiction in the ideas of quantity and quality. You got to pick to prioritize one. You guys have clearly prioritized quantity. You've had a few good films, absolutely, but when your ratio is basically 70 terrible films for every one, that's not an exaggeration, by the way. When you've got a rough, let's be generous, let's say 50. When you've got a reputation that you put 50 films, you have to put out 50 garbage films for every one good one, clearly you are prioritizing quantity, not quality. And you don't get to have both. Not at the numbers you're doing things at. You just can't. So anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think of this? Ted Sarandos is saying, I disagree. I think you can have all the quantity and all the quality. I believe statistics have showed us otherwise. I believe his history at Netflix has shown us otherwise. You got to prioritize one. Whatever you guys think, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Everybody's excited about Green Lantern. DC, of course, is about to relaunch anew with a brand new cinematic universe. The DCEU is dead. Long live the DCU. Hopefully it'll be better than the last one. This one's being run by James Gunn. They actually have a point person running their cinematic universe now, something the DCEU never had. And there's, we got the new Superman movie coming. We've been talking about that. The Supergirl movie is coming. A lot of announcements. One of the things that got people really excited, though, was the announcement of the Green Lantern project. That there's going to be a TV series. Some even whispered that it would be like a True Detective kind of series, but with Green Lanterns, right? So with a couple of Green Lanterns, not just one, a couple of them. And that's got a lot of people excited. People talking. But, who's going to be starring in it? Who's going to be directing the episodes? Who's going to be writing the episodes? That's the main thing. Who's writing it? Well, we now know who the writers are going to be, and there's a lot of Emmys. There's a lot of television Emmys wrapped up in the names of the people they said they're going to get. This comes to us from Deadline, who first of all quote James Gunn saying, yes, it's true. The Lanterns DCU series is putting together a crack team of writers based on a wonderful pilot script and Bible by Chris Mundy, Tom King, and Damon Lindelof. Hearty welcome to Chris and Damon as they join the DC Studios family. No welcome necessary, obviously, for Tom King, who has been here since the early inception. Now, Deadline goes on to write, Lindelof received critical acclaim for his work in 2019's The Watchmen, which, by the way, won the Emmy for Best Outstanding Limited Series. And acting awards for Regina King and Yahya Abdul-Mateen. Chris Mundy is known for shows like True Detective and Ozark, which a lot of people love those shows, while Tom King has written for DC Comics for many years. All right. I want to kind of say this. I have not been incredibly what you would call super excited for a Green Lantern series. Green Lantern's never been my favorite character, even when Ryan Reynolds was going to, don't get me wrong, I was excited for the movie and we saw how that turned out. So I've never really been super big on Green Lantern, but the idea was interesting. Now, in movies, I say this all the time, right? The main person, the main individual that will tell me whether or not I should be hopeful that it's going to be good or not is the director, right? The director has the most creative power. The director is really the one that's steering the ship. In television series, it's different. It's not that directors aren't important on television. They are, but it's the writers and particularly the showrunners. They're the ones that are actually more in control of television shows than directors are. That's just a fact and a truism, right? We know that. When you start adding, like, first of all, I really enjoyed Watchmen a lot. Won the Emmy for Outstanding Limited Series. Then you bring on top of that the guy who actually, because some people were whispering that maybe this new Green Lantern series was going to be like a True Detective. We'll bring in the guy who actually did True Detective. Now, I'll also admit up front, I didn't love Ozark the way a lot of people did. But holy crap, a lot of people love Ozark. Like, love it. Robert Meyer Burnett's one of them. Just absolutely go crazy. I mean, most of my friends, whenever you bring up Ozark, they just start going nutty about it. So you bring in the guy who's with a huge, extensive sci-fi fantasy writing background in Damon Lindelof, who also just happened to write a series that won the Emmy for Best Limited Series. Then you bring in another guy who did stuff like True Detective and Ozark. Oh, and by the way, team them up with like DC royalty. And listen, I got to tell you what, you start putting together a writing team like this, I think they could be onto something like really, really good. They could be onto something great. Now, as far as who's going to be the Green Lantern, I think we're going to have two of them. I mean, we're probably going to be introduced a lot. We all know that in Superman, we've got Guy Gardner, right? Is going to be in Superman. So the Guy Gardner Green Lantern is going to be there. But I think what the ones they're really going to be focusing on are Hal Jordan on John Stewart. I don't think Kyle Rayner is going to be in there, but I think it's going to be Hal Jordan. Like your two most probably, like your true definitive Green Lantern is Hal Jordan, right? Like there was one before him and yes, there have been others after, but I think the one true definitive Green Lantern is Hal Jordan. The modern, most prominent Green Lantern has probably been John Stewart. So I think it makes sense that we're going to have them together. And I'm with Xavier on one of the viewers, Xavier, saying, give us Guy, Hal, and John, and I'm good. I can't wait to see interaction between all three of them. And of course, I want to find out who they're going to cast in this in the first place. Look, is the Green Lantern series going to be great? I have no idea if it will or not. I really don't. It might be garbage. It might be fantastic. All I'm saying, though, is that when you're adding award-winning writing talent to kind of guide the show, I think you're in a pretty good position, right? So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe the show will be great, maybe it'll be bad, but I think adding these writers is definitely a step in the right direction. Question is for you guys. What do you think about that? Do you like the writers they've added to them? Maybe you're not a fan of these guys. Maybe you don't care about Green Lantern. Maybe this is your most anticipated thing. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Sticking on the topic of the new DC universe, we've got Green Lantern coming, but the aforementioned, we've got a Superman movie coming. And of course, Nicholas Hoult, a dude I have loved really since ever Warm Bodies. I mean, we've been familiar with him before that, but it was Warm Bodies for me that made me go, this guy's got something that I just love seeing on screen. Of course, he's got other comic book movie background. He's been playing Hank McCoy Beast, the younger version of it at any rate, ever since X-Men First Class. So I really, really like the dude. Well, of course, not too long ago, he was cast as our new Lex Luthor. Our new Lex Luthor. So a lot of people wondering what's he going to look like. Well, he's just posted a bunch of pictures online, not as Lex Luthor, but kind of sporting his look. Now, whenever somebody gets cast in a recognizable role, we as fans, I'm no exception to this, we kind of look forward to seeing what are they going to look like in the role. Not that that's the most important thing, not at all, but we do get curious. And so Nicholas Hoult got on Instagram and posted some pictures of himself, driving a race car. But we're still seeing him, just a little bit of the stubble is growing back in, but we're basically getting our look at him. Being able to first, starting to envision him, but what's he going to look like as Lex Luthor a little bit? And there we're getting it. And I got to say, now, I like the look on him. I mean, look at him. He looks great. I can totally see Lex. I mean, shave that a little bit more and I could totally see Lex. Now, look, let me emphasize this point again. One of the least important things when casting somebody to play a comic book movie character is if they look like them. It's not a zero important thing, but it's like number 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 on the priority list. It's really not all that important. Okay. Nobody on the planet thought Heath Ledger looked anything like a Joker. Nobody on the planet thought that this guy, Hugh Jackman, looked anything like Wolverine. The point is, it's really not all that important because you can put a costume on them, you can put makeup. It's not important. What's important is you write a great character and you get somebody to give it a great performance. That being said, it does tickle our giblets a little bit when we do get to see them, as the character, dressed up the way that we're going to see him, and it rings true for us, right? Like, yeah, I don't need, look, Lex Luthor has looked 50 different ways in the comic books over the decades, right? He's had like 50 different looks. So I don't care if Nicholas Hoult looks like Lex Luthor, whatever. But seeing him start to round into the image of it, it becomes another one of those tangibilization things, right? It's now tangible. It's real. We can start to envision it. We start to see it. And while, again, I don't think it's high on the priority list of importance as to who you cast or anything like that, it does kind of get you a little bit excited when you see them start to manifest the character we're excited about. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I've been excited about Nicholas Hoult's casting as Superman or as Lex Luthor in Superman ever since they announced it. And seeing the look, I think it looks pretty good. Question is for you guys. What do you think of him with the shaved head look? Are you starting to see Lex Luthor? Maybe you loved it. You didn't even need to see it. You've loved his casting ever since. Maybe you're one of those people that still needs some convincing. That's fair too. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. Listen, we still got a couple of other things that we need to talk about here. Giancarlo Esposito is teasing his MCU character now, saying that he's probably even going to get his own series, and that's sparking some speculation as to who he's going to play. And Furiosa set a couple of records. A really good one, best audience score in the franchise, and a really bad one, the lowest opening weekend on a Memorial Day for a #1 movie in almost 30 years. We're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Harry's and Miracle Made. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Harry's. You know, guys, in order to start the John Campea Show, I had to leave my high-paying corporate job in order to set myself up to be happier and enjoy more personal success. Because sometimes to get what you want, you have to challenge the status quo and blaze your own trail. And that's exactly what the folks at Harry's did. You see, at Harry's, they saw customers getting ripped off by questionable products in the shaving industry and decided to do something better. Harry's decided to pave their own road by making beautifully designed razors for a fraction of the price of the other big brands. Exceptional products, honest prices. That's Harry's. I have fallen in love with Harry's, from their foaming shaving gel that feels just luxurious on the skin to their incredible razor that feels just as good in the hand as it does going over your skin. They've got rich, lathering, skin-softening body wash in scents like redwood, wildlands, and stone. You see, Harry's provides German-engineered blades made in their own factory that stay sharp longer. You can get a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just
just $3 at harrys.com/Campea. Don't settle for the status quo. Blaze your own trail with Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/Campea. That's harrys.com/Campea for a $3 trial set. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Miracle Made. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so that you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. When they arrived at our house, my wife Ann loved the feel of them so much, she couldn't even wait for me to get home to put them on our bed. Miracle Made has self-cleaning. These sheets are infused with silver that prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. Miracle Sheets also have incredible comfort and quality. Miracle Sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So go to TryMiracle, that's TryMiracle.com/Campea to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code Campea at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you will get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to TryMiracle.com/Campea and use the code Campea to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's TryMiracle.com/Campea to treat yourself.
And thank you to our friends at Harry's and Miracle Made for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, how we doing? We doing all right flying solo here today? It's a little weird doing it all by myself, trying to run everything, and I got no backup. So are we doing all right? I hope we're doing all right. You guys hanging in there? Okay, with that down, let's get things going here, shall we? With this. I think it's fair to say that Giancarlo Esposito is a universally beloved performer right now. Is that fair to say? I think it's fair to say. Whether he's playing like Fring in Breaking Bad, he's Moff Gideon in the Star Wars universe, he's the one guy who can intimidate Homelander in The Boys, he was just fantastic in The Gentleman. I mean, the dude, everybody loves Giancarlo Esposito, right? Like, I'm sure not everybody does. I'm sure he's got his detractors. I'm just saying, I don't personally think I've ever met a person that didn't really like Giancarlo Esposito. He's great. Well, anyway, he got people pretty excited a little while ago when he confirmed that he is going to be joining the MCU. He said it's a done deal. He's joining the MCU, but they're not revealing who the character is. He did kind of hint that it won't be as Professor Charles Xavier, which some people speculated he might be. He said he wouldn't be. Well, it doesn't sound like his appearance in the MCU is going to be a one and done, because he was recently at a convention and kind of asked about what's going on with the MCU. And Giancarlo Esposito said this. He said, "The MCU has knocked on my door, and it's a role you won't predict. It will be teased, and then there will be a series afterwards. The MCU's knocked on my door. It's a role you won't predict." So that probably throws out the Charles Xavier thing. So a lot of people, or Magneto, like some people speculate he could be Magneto too. It's a role you won't predict. It'll be teased, and then there will be a series afterwards. Okay. Now, the good folks over at Cinema Blend, an outlet I really like reading a lot, have for many years. I like these guys. They've taken that, and they believe he's hinting he's going to be Dr. Doom. Now, I could totally see Giancarlo Esposito playing Dr. Doom. I could. But when Giancarlo Esposito says it's a role you won't predict, I think that almost disqualifies that, because I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a lot of people thinking that it could be Dr. Doom. So I think that kind of disqualifies that. A lot of other people, like Simon in the live chat, are thinking it's Sinister. Could be. He would be a great Mr. Sinister, wouldn't he? Like, because it's all about that voice. Oh my God, Giancarlo Esposito would have an awesome Mr. Sinister voice. Some people in the live chat, like Kane, is saying Apocalypse. Also, great voice. Amazing voice. But we got to take into consideration what he just said, right? He said he's going to be teased, and then he's going to get a series. Teasing might hint at Doctor Doom, because we're all pretty confident that Doctor Doom will make an appearance in Fantastic Four. Like, he's not going to be the main bad guy in Fantastic Four. They're going to save that for later. But I think most of us believe he'll at least appear teased in some way. So Giancarlo Esposito says, I'm going to play in this character. I'm going to be teased, then get my own series. Here's the problem. I don't see them doing a Doctor Doom series. All right? I don't see them doing a Doctor Doom series. I don't think they're going to take Doctor Doom and Disney Plus him. I think Doctor Doom is going to be a cinematic guy. Same thing goes for, well, here's why Sinister could make sense. Because you could tease Sinister in a number of different projects, right? There's a lot of different projects. It doesn't have to be an X-Men project either. There's a lot of projects you could tease a Mr. Sinister. Nathaniel Essex, if you will. And the idea, you could do a Mr. Sinister series that's kind of like the Highlander. That it kind of follows Sinister over the decades and maybe even centuries. Right? So kind of like a historical thing, an evolution of Sinister, if you will, up to the point where we are. Now, I'm not usually big on the idea of kind of prequel series, but a Sinister origin story kind of series that shows what leads him to where we then pick up with him, that's really not a prequel series because we haven't had Mr. Sinister yet. So Sinister could be it. That could be it. I don't think it's going to be Apocalypse because, again, I don't see them doing an Apocalypse TV series. I don't think they're going to Disney Plus Apocalypse. I don't think they're going to Disney Plus Doctor Doom. I don't think they're going to Disney Plus Apocalypse. You could Disney Plus Mr. Sinister. You could do that because I don't think a lot of the average moviegoers are familiar with Mr. Sinister. I think a lot more moviegoers are familiar with Doctor Doom. A lot more average moviegoers are familiar with Apocalypse. Not a huge amount. Now, due to the popularity of X-Men 97, Mega Tokyo is saying, what about Bastion? Bastion's a very popular character right now. I don't know if they'll go for somebody in Giancarlo's age range for Bastion, but Bastion is definitely a possibility. Again, somebody that you could totally tease in one movie and then do a Disney Plus series on. You could do that with Bastion. A few of the rest of them, I don't know that you can. Regardless, the addition of Giancarlo Esposito to the MCU is one of the more exciting developments for the MCU, I think, in a while. I mean, listen, the MCU got into the habit. When comic book movies really started, you weren't getting your legit A-listers. Oh, John, what about Robert Downey Jr.? Robert Downey Jr. was not an A-lister when they got him. He had sabotaged his career a couple of times. His career was really nowhere. It was Iron Man that rejuvenated him and catapulted him back to being an A-lister. Yes, but when then they got an unknown Chris Hemsworth to be that. Chris Evans was a known name, but not really an A-lister at the time. But then a little later, they started getting names like, Robert Redford, Anthony Hopkins, other legendary Oscar winners, Rene Russo. They started to get the creme de la creme of big names to come in, and that's kind of set the stage. And to do that with the Giancarlo Esposito right now, a guy who is universally beloved by just about everybody in fandom, a guy who is already in the family, by the way, because of his portrayal as Moff Gideon, that all works in their favor. So I am very curious. Look, I'll say this. While I have some guesses, and I'm sure all of us have some guesses about who Giancarlo Esposito is going to play, I don't really care who he plays. I mean, of course, to some degree I care, but in general, whoever they have him playing, I'm going to be excited about. Just don't have him play Franklin Richards, who's a wee little boy. Just don't have him play Franklin Richards and I'm good. Just don't have him play Child and I'm okay. A lot of people in line are saying Blue Marvel. Some people are saying new Nick Fury. Why would you have a new Nick Fury? We have a Nick Fury. Like, who was that was saying that in the live chat? Decay is saying new Nick Fury. We've got a Nick Fury. We don't need a new Nick Fury at this point. Maybe a Senator Kelly. John AM is throwing out Senator Kelly. I just don't see them doing a Disney Plus show on Senator Kelly, to be honest with you. Obviously, more and more people are saying Mephisto, so I don't think it's going to be Mephisto. A lot of people still think it's going to be Magneto. The problem is we've got Giancarlo Esposito saying, I'm going to be teased, my character's going to be teased, and then there's going to be a series. Do you really think they're going to Disney Plus Magneto? I really do not think they're going to Disney Plus Magneto. So it's wild. It's up in the air still who he's going to play. If he played Doom, would I be happy? Absolutely. If he played Apocalypse, would I be happy? Absolutely. A lot of different possibilities, but I think it's still going to be a big mystery. I don't think he's teasing when he says a lot of people aren't going to guess who it is I'm playing. So question is for you guys. What do you think? Who do you think Giancarlo Esposito is teasing that he's going to be playing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? He says the character's going to be teased and then there's going to be a series. I think that disqualifies some people. Maybe you don't. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? So the opening weekend is come and gone for both Furiosa and Mad Max. And while Mad Max, congratulations, took the number 1 spot by a very thin margin over, a kids-focused movie, Garfield. Furiosa took the official opening weekend at $25.5 million. Garfield came in second at $24.7 million. That's... not going to lie to you, as a lot of outlets have already started talking about and reporting, that's not good. Now, we don't know what the totals for the Memorial Day weekend are, like the long weekend, so Garfield may jump ahead for the long weekend numbers, but for the official opening weekend numbers, Furiosa takes in $25.5 million. And it's not good. It's not good. As a matter of fact, here's how not good it is. This comes from the folks over at Variety. The Warner Brothers high-octane prequel Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is facing off against Sony's animated The Garfield movie for first place on box office charts over Memorial Day weekend. Each movie has generated roughly $25 million over the weekend and an estimated $31 million through Monday. Both studios are reporting that its own movie is ranked number 1. And of course, Box Office Mojo has declared Furiosa the winner, but only by a very, very thin margin. Whichever pulls ahead, here's the key part. Whichever pulls ahead, it's already been determined. It will be the worst Memorial Day opening weekend in nearly 3 decades. The worst Memorial Day opening weekend in nearly 3 decades. Here's another interesting little factoid. Do you know that Furiosa just set the Mad Max franchise record for highest audience score? Yeah, Fury Road had, I believe, an 86% audience score, which is fantastic. Furiosa, a 91% audience score. Now, just to be clear, I don't necessarily think that Furiosa was better than Fury Road, but I do think Furiosa is awesome. It's an absolutely awesome movie. Well, and I had some doubts, but never doubt George Miller. I'll never doubt George Miller again. The movie is absolutely fantastic. But why did the movie only make $25 million opening weekend? Well, there are some people who say, and I understand the rationale here. There are some people who say, well, people don't have the money to go to movies anymore. And I hear that said a lot. But the data kind of shows a little bit otherwise. Like, I went to the government site and got, this is discretionary spending in the United States, consumer spending in the United States. It has gone up. Now, obviously, you can see there in 2020, when the pandemic started, from 2019 to 2020, consumer discretionary spending dropped, okay? It dropped. Obviously, pandemic, people were their jobs, they were getting suspended from their jobs, all that kind of stuff. It dropped. But in 2021, it went up again. In 2022, it went up again. In 2023, it went up again. And right now, 2024 is on pace to even beat 2023 for discretionary consumer spending. People are spending money, right? People are spending money. So why didn't people spend any money on going to Furiosa? Well, there's something else I want to point out too. And I brought this up on the John Campea show last week, but I think it's really important to point this out again. Fury Road was a beloved movie. But would it surprise you to find out that Black Adam made more money at the box office than Fury Road? At least I think it did. Let me look up Black Adam here. Black Adam, because I know Black Adam didn't make $400 million at the box office. Black Adam made $393 million at the box office worldwide. It made more money than Fury Road did. And the reason I bring that up is because I think a lot of us, and I include myself in this, when we think of Fury Road, we think of this classic, universally beloved, awesome, big blockbuster movie, right? That's what we think of. So it would surprise a lot of people to find out it did okay at the box office, but actually not a lot of people went to go see it. I think it made correct me in the live chat if I'm wrong about this, guys, but I believe the movie made $380 million at the box office. $380 million at the box office. So it's not like this franchise, it's not like Fury Road was some giant massive hit and then along comes Furiosa and it doesn't make any money. We're going, why didn't it make it? I mean, the reality is, as much as hardcore fans like you and I talk about Fury Road, romanticize about Fury Road, fondly remember Fury Road, and the overall Mad Max saga, of course, the reality is it didn't do that great. So to expect Furiosa, a movie that is, number one, a prequel, number two, does not have the cast from Fury Road. I mean, they went out and got the absolutely phenomenal Anya Taylor-Joy, and she's incredible in the movie. Anya Taylor-Joy is great in the movie. Absolutely fantastic. And, Chris Hemsworth, amazing. One of Chris Hemsworth's best performances. I love Chris Hemsworth in this movie. But still, it's the reality of, you already had a movie that wasn't that big of a hit. Now you're doing a prequel of that movie without the stars from the previous movie. Should it really surprise us all that much that the movie ended up making between $25 and $26 million opening weekend? Probably over $30 million for the Memorial Day weekend. Should it really surprise us that much? I mean, Mad Max Fury Road, if I'm remembering correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat, guys, but Mad Max Fury Road, I think had like a $40 to $45 million opening, which is better than the 30 that Furiosa is going to get for the Memorial Day weekend. But I mean, its opening weekend wasn't all that great either. Wasn't all that great. So, I mean, there's discretionary spending in the U.S. consumer spending. It's there. The data shows it. It keeps going up. But people just didn't want to go see Fury Road. Or I should say Furiosa. They just didn't want to go see it. So what are we left with? Well, I think this. I think there is a reality here that on top of the fact that Fury Road itself didn't make a ton of money to start with, and the fact that this is a prequel, and the fact that it's a prequel without the original actors, I also think there's something to be said about, and maybe this applies to Fury Road itself as well, that the dark, depressing, savage Badlands kind of movie is not going to appeal to everybody. Like, an idea about a world that has gone to crap and now everybody's eating each other, metaphorically speaking. Everybody's being total savages to each other and killing each other and like all this kind of stuff in a desperate bid for survival. Maybe just the premise in of itself isn't all that great. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But anyway, all I know is this, is that Furiosa has become the latest film that is really, really great to not end up doing so well. It reminds me, hopefully Furiosa can have a kind of Elemental kind of resurgence. Because you remember Pixar's Elemental, it started really slow. Like, what was Elemental's open? Let me pull this up. Let me see if I can find this. Elemental's opening weekend was terrible. Like, not the worst, but it was terrible. Elemental had an opening weekend of, where was it? $29 million. Elemental had an opening weekend of $29 million. So roughly where Furiosa is going to have its Memorial Day opening weekend. $29 million. That movie went on to make almost $500 million at the box office. Because word of mouth got out about how good it was and all that kind of stuff. And Elemental's fantastic. By the way, I know a bunch of you still haven't seen Elemental. Watch it. It's really good Pixar. It's really a great movie. Anyway, can Furiosa have that kind of a resurgence? Can Furiosa have that kind of legs where maybe it has a slow start and then kind of picks up because word of mouth? Because Furiosa is excellent. It's an excellent movie. So maybe it will, maybe it won't. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Number one, did you have a chance to see Furiosa this weekend? And if so, primarily what I want to know is, what did you think of it? I mean, I absolutely loved it. I'm not going to say it's better than Fury Road, but I absolutely loved Furiosa. How did you feel about it? And then if you liked it, why do you think more people didn't go out? I've got some theories. Fury Road wasn't that big of a hit. This is a prequel without its stars as well. It's a very bleak, dark, savage kind of looking film, which is awesome to me, but maybe not for everybody. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down now, we're going to move on to the most important part of our show, which is taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick moment here and thank another sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at The Perfect Jeans.
Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, The Perfect Jean. Guys, are you tired of the rough and rigid jeans crushing your boys? Well, today's sponsor, The Perfect Jean, finally solved all of your denim difficulties. They make great looking, perfect fitting jeans that are as comfortable as sweatpants. The secret? A special denim fabric that is super soft and has the perfect amount of stretch so you can squat, do yoga, or just sit around all day without ever having to take them off. I'm going to admit I was a little bit skeptical because to me, jeans have always been jeans. They're practical, but not always the most comfortable. But I'm telling you guys, it's not an exaggeration. Once I put on these jeans, the Perfect Jean redefined what jeans can be to me. They're the perfect fit, they stretch, they breathe, and again, they're just insanely comfortable. So guys, it's finally time to stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectjean.nyc/Campea15. Our listeners get 15% off your first order plus free shipping, free returns and free exchanges when you use code Campea15 at checkout. Again, that's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc/Campea15 and use the code Campea15. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support the John Campea Show and tell them we sent you.
And thank you to our friends at The Perfect Jean for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your questions here, shall we? And I got to start off with this. For those of you who saw Friday's installment of the John Campea Show, you know it ended kind of weird because we got this really weird message in from one of our regular viewers, CJ, who wrote this question. To ask Captain America, where is Deadpool? She accepted my $20 and responded, I don't know who that is, but maybe I'll meet him someday. I laugh so hard. To which me and the rest of the guys in the studio were like, what is CJ? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. Well, the reason it made no sense is not because CJ was drunk. Maybe CJ was drunk. But the reason it didn't make sense was not because CJ was drunk. It was because I missed the first part of the question. So guys, do me a favor. When you write a multiple parter, put 1 of 2 and 2 of 2, that sort of thing, because I missed the first part of his question. It makes more sense, and I thought it only fair that we start off today by actually reading the first part of that question. So CJ wrote on Friday, "Hey John," this is part 1 of that. "Went to Disneyland last weekend with my niece, and I happened to notice there was no Deadpool merch available for purchase. We came across a Captain America character in the Marvel area of California Adventure. I paid my 7-year-old niece to ask Captain America, 'Where is Deadpool?' She accepted my $20, and he responded, 'I don't know who that is, but maybe I'll meet him someday.' I laughed so hard." Now it makes sense. Okay. Let's start with the first part of that. That Deadpool is not currently, you can't find Deadpool merch in Disneyland right now. I'm not surprised, right? Because as of right now, Deadpool has not appeared in the MCU. John, Disney will often put out merchandising of movies that haven't come out yet. Yeah, I know, but this one's a little bit different. Deadpool is an R-rated character. The new movie coming out is R-rated. I'm still sure there's going to be Deadpool merch once the movie comes out. I totally believe there will be, but I'm not really completely sure that that's the one that's, they're going to do that before the movie comes out. Secondly, let me just say, I admire you taking a 7-year-old child and using them as a human shield to find out something you don't want to find out for yourself. And I'm not being facetious. I think we should all use 7-year-old children as human shields more. Got a girl you're afraid to ask out? Send a 7-year-old to ask her. Afraid to talk to the cop who pulled you over? Get the 7-year-old to talk to them. I personally, some people are going to judge you for that, CJ. I applaud you, sir. I applaud you. All right. Now that we got the CJ thing finally straightened out, and thanks a lot for the question, CJ. Let's move on here. Next up, we got an anonymous viewer who writes, "What if the new Spielberg film is a sequel to Close Encounters? Spoiler for a 45-year-old movie, that film ended with the dude basically abandoning his family to go travel with aliens. What if the sequel is him coming back and trying to reconnect with them?" You know what? First of all, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, one of the all-time greatest sci-fi classics. I love that movie. I think most people do. But here's the reality. I don't think anybody's going to see that movie, right? I don't think anybody's going to go see that movie. Like a follow-up to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Richard Dreyfuss comes back, with his opus. That's a deep cut joke for anybody who knows what I'm talking about. So he comes back. I mean, a sequel to a movie that old that, I just don't know that it would have any marketability. I don't know that anybody would see it. Now, another option I've heard some people say, Mark W. just brought it up, an E.T. sequel. See, but John, it's the same thing. It's a really old movie doing a sequel years later. Yes, but E.T. is a universally beloved film, right? E.T. is point blank a universally beloved film. And I actually think there would be more marketability for an E.T. sequel. Now, just to be honest, I don't think it's either. I don't think it's going to be a sequel. I think this mystery Steven Spielberg project is not going to be a sequel to anything he's done. I don't know that it won't be. I'm just guessing. My guess is it won't be. I think it'll be something original, but I could see an E.T. before doing a Close Encounters sequel. That's just me. All right, next up. Concerned Fanazin writes, "John, do you drink any water, or is your body 70% Zevia? Holy dry mouth." Well, yeah, listen, you guys might notice that whenever I do a show, particularly when I do a show solo, I am often sipping on a drink. That's because, especially when I'm doing a show solo, when you are talking straight for 1, 2, 2.5, sometimes 3 hours, my throat does start to go. I have to be drinking while I'm doing a show. I just have to. It's not an option. It's not up for discussion. It's not for debate. I have to, or my voice goes and I can't finish a show and all that kind of stuff. Now, it is true that while I do my shows, I will either drink Zevia or Diet Pepsi or something like that. But the only other time I drink soda is if I'm watching a movie. That's the only other time I drink soda, is if I'm watching a film. All the rest of the day, my Stanley Cup, and again, this is the only kind of Stanley Cup you'll ever see a Toronto Maple Leaf fan holding. My Stanley Cup is usually filled with water. So I drink a large amount of water every day. How do you think this kind of beauty? Do you think this kind of perfection comes without proper hydration? Come on, man. Obviously, yes, I do drink a lot of water, just not while I'm doing the show. That's all. All right. Thank you for being a concerned fanizen. For that, I appreciate that. All right, next up. Twilight Boy writes, been down, John. I'm going through a very nasty breakup with my longtime girlfriend. Sorry to hear about that. And it's extremely painful. Tried watching Furiosa to get my mind off it, but we were supposed to see that together, so it was hard. That probably wasn't the best choice for Twilight Boy. Any movie suggestions? All right. Let me say this. When it comes to the matter of the broken heart, or anything that way, look, I am no therapist. I mean, so I'm just some random idiot with a camera in his garage doing YouTube videos. So, I mean, don't listen to anything I say when it pertains to matters of the heart or emotion. Let me just tell you my experience. I get it. I hear from guys that are younger than me, not often that are older, and I'll tell you why, not often from older ones, but from guys who are younger than me who go through a hard breakup. And listen, I'm not trying to downplay a hard breakup. I'm not. I've been through hard breakups. And I know that when you're in the midst of it, it can be painful. The thing is, because I've been there, and most guys a little bit younger than me, my age or older, have already been through some, significant breakups. We know it's not that big of a deal because we're on the other side of it, right? We got hindsight as our ally, right? Hindsight. Yoda may have the Force as his ally. Hindsight is my ally. And you realize life goes on. So you'll be fine, Twilight Boy. Believe me when I tell you, you'll be fine. But for me, whenever something crappy is going on, my go-to is comedy. I mean, there are many situations in life when my go-to is comedy, but particularly when something crappy is going on in my life, my go-to thing is comedy. Oh, I love Robert Presser's recommendation. There's a little comedy called Grandma's Boy. That's a really good one because it's kind of dumb and silly, but it makes you laugh. It's funny. I usually go to some of my my absolute dependable ones. Like we're talking Step Brothers, 40-Year-Old Virgin, I Love You Man, Ron any of the Ron Burgundy films. Anyway, Spaceballs. A good comedy. I always recommend, and listen, take it for what it is. It's just me. You shouldn't listen to me. But I usually recommend for anything crappy going on in life, go to a comedy. Makes you laugh. It's a great mental reset. Laughing. Laughing is a great thing, man. It really is. All right. Best of luck to you, Twilight Boy. Next up, we got Don Juan 9768 writes, hello, John. Love the show. Thank you so much. Just want to know why you did not show the Rotten Tomatoes audience score in the Garfield movie at 83%. Well, I'll tell you why I didn't. And let me see if I'm going to see if I can find it here. I'm not 100% sure I can find it. Give me a moment. I'm going to see if I can. Okay, so I'm going to try to bring it up here if I can. I'm going to see if I can find it. Okay. I think this is what you're referring to, right? So I brought up the Garfield score when we were talking about Garfield last week. And he's asking, why didn't you show the audience score? Well, because this was the Rotten Tomato page. at the time that we discussed Garfield and I brought up the Rotten Tomatoes page, you'll see they did not yet have the audience score, right? There was not yet an audience score. I didn't avoid the audience score. You can just see here in the video when I brought up the Rotten Tomatoes page, it only at that point so far had the critic score. It didn't happen to have the audience score. And the audience score was higher than the critic score. Of course, who is the audience going to see Garfield? A lot of families with young kids, whatever. I happen to, sometimes I agree with the audience score, sometimes I agree with the critic score. In this sense, I don't think Garfield is a good movie at all. Not a train wreck, not a dumpster fire, not the worst film of the year or anything like that. I just didn't think it was good. But yeah, I did not intentionally omit the audience score. As on the video, you can see when I brought up the scores, it did not yet have an audience score. So that's why we didn't discuss it when we talked about it on the show. All right. Next up here, we go to, thanks for the question, Don Juan. Just your average Jose writes, unconfirmed news is that 7'2" bodybuilder Oliver Richards has been cast in Reacher season 3. This guy is massive. I've checked out his YouTube channel and he has great screen presence. If his acting skills are good, I have a high belief that he will be Kratos. Just because you see somebody who's a big guy, don't start casting them stuff. I have no idea. Like, I read this stuff too. The thing is, I don't know if this guy can act. Right? And we don't know how he's going to be used in Reacher. Well, John, in the book, the characters, this is different. This is the TV show. And as like this villainous character, you can have him on screen as much or as little as you want. You can give him as much dialogue or as little as you want. There's going to be a huge difference between playing a big bad guy in a TV series like Reacher versus making them the lead actor and lead character. Because listen, do we all want a big hulking guy to play Kratos? Of course we do. I mean, yeah, that would be ideal if you can. Not the most important thing, but ideal. But if you go out and just get some guy who can't carry a series, because you're talking about the lead character of the series, the actor who's got to do all the proverbial heavy lifting dramatically to make the show work. You sacrifice a little bit of size from the guy to get a better actor. You don't want some scrawny kid running around playing Kratos. Agreed. But I think you sacrifice some size to get a good actor. That's the most important thing. So I'm not going to look at anybody where I haven't seen their acting chops yet and go, oh yeah, that guy would be a great Kratos. I need somebody who's a good actor to be able to do that. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, he's definitely a dude. He's definitely an impressive looking specimen, man. No doubt about it. To see him and Alan Ritchson on screen together is going to be massive. It's going to be huge. All right. Vatzel writes, where are we at here? Oh yeah. Hey, John, a while back, there were rumors of Taylor Swift potentially being in Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that's definitely going to happen. I mean, I don't know that for a fact. I'm just saying I think it's going to happen. Want to run potential ideas by you. Number one, she plays a pop star, except she is a quote unquote Lady Gaga variant. They're not going to do that. Or two, she plays a Scooter Braun like Les Grossman. Which idea works? I don't know that either of them work, to be honest with you. Now, look, I'm not necessarily saying that she's going to be Dazzler. Like, that seems to be the common wisdom out there. People believe she's going to play Dazzler. And maybe she is. And I'm all for it. I know Rob really loves the idea of her playing Dazzler. If she does, great. Makes sense. Pop star, mutant, sure. That said, I only think it's a 50-50 chance she plays Dazzler. I think there's a 50% chance she plays somebody else. Another universe's variant of Lady Gaga, no, I don't see that. Or like a Les Grossman kind of character, I don't see that either. I don't think either of those are really potentials. But other than that, there are a lot of possibilities. Yeah, but everybody just thinks it's going to be Dazzler. I think Luis in the live chat has it right. I think there's a very good chance that she's just going to play herself. Again, I don't know that, but I think there's a pretty decent chance. Like, I think there's a 50% chance she plays Dazzler, a 20% chance she plays herself, and then every other possibility combined about 30%. So 50% chance Dazzler, 20% chance herself, and then all the other possibilities put together, maybe 30%. So I don't know. We'll see. Oh, and by the way, there is a possibility she's not in the movie at all. We're all guessing, for good reason. There's anecdotal evidence there. We're all guessing she's going to be in the movie. But just to be clear, she has not made it official that she's in it. Neither has Kevin Feige, neither has Sean Levy. None of them have confirmed she's in it. So maybe there's a chance she's not even there at all. All right, thanks for that. Next up, we go to Vince Carter of Mars. I like that name. Hey, John, long time since I've sent in a chat, but still been watching since 2016. Thank you so much, man. That's like 8 years. Visiting Niagara Falls. Oh, I love Niagara Falls. With my girlfriend and some of her family this weekend. While up here, we're going to catch a showing of Planet of the Apes in Hamilton, Ontario. Yeah, so obviously, first of all, have a great time, Vince Carter of Mars. Good Toronto Raptor, that Vince Carter. Anyway, my hometown is Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, greatest city in the world. But Niagara Falls is only about 40 minutes from Hamilton. At least 40 minutes from where the Campea Ranch is, my parents' place. And I would drive in Niagara Falls all the time. I also went to school in Niagara Falls. I went to Niagara College for a little bit, but also had a lot of friends, dated a girl from Niagara Falls, all that kind of stuff. We'd go into Niagara Falls all the time. Went to play some poker in Niagara Falls, only 40 minutes away. Like, it is the most obnoxious tourist trap in the world, Niagara Falls. I mean, everything about Niagara Falls is all built around getting a quick $5 off of tourists. Like, everything is there. It's almost obnoxious. But if you've never seen Niagara Falls in person, it is spectacular. It really is. It like, as much of a tourist trap as the whole Niagara Falls is and all that kind of stuff, when you actually get there and you get through downtown, you've parked your car and you pass by 500 gift shops, when you finally actually get to the falls, it's breathtaking. I remember I took Anne there for the first time. She'd never seen Niagara Falls. I took her there for her first experience at Niagara Falls. And it really is something else. If you've never been, the video footage, pictures don't do it justice. You actually have to be there and actually see it. It's really breathtaking. I hope you guys have a great time, man. All right, next up. Blakebury writes, one of two. Watch the whole series of Sugar this weekend, knowing there was a twist coming. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to make sure you're not spoiling anything just before I do. Okay, you don't spoil anything. All right, let's go back to it. I watched the whole series of Sugar this weekend, knowing there was a twist coming. My brain went into overdrive from episode 1, and by the end of that episode, I guessed what the twist was. For me, knowing there was a twist kind of spoiled my enjoyment of watching this fantastic series. My brain becomes like Matt Berry's character in the episode of the IT Crowd. That's a good comparison. I like that. Of the IT Crowd, watching a film and shouting out all the theories for the twist ending. All right. So, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Colin Farrell's show on Apple TV Plus is wonderful. It's called Sugar. You should check it out. It's really, really great. But it kind of became known that there is a twist, right? It became known that there's a twist in the show. Now, some people have been writing in. We talked a little bit about it on Open Mic on Saturday. Some people have written in saying, well, if you know a twist is coming, then that kind of ruins it. And I disagree. And there's two reasons I disagree. One in general and one for Sugar specifically. One in general. Almost every screen story worth salt has some kind of a twist, right? Most, not all of them, but most shows or movies have a point in the show where something or movie that something unexpected happens that kind of changes the direction of the story for us, the audience, right? The example I gave was even a movie like Crazy Stupid Love, the magnificent movie with Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, Marissa Tomei, Julianne Moore. It's an amazing movie. It's fantastic. But even that simple kind of rom-com movie has a significant twist. And I'm going to spoil it for you. Okay? The significant twist is that Ryan Gosling finds out the girl he's after is actually Steve Carell's daughter. I mean, like, that's a twist. That changes the perception of the narrative for us, the audience, and for the characters, right? It's a twist. Now, different people have different definitions of twist, but a twist is anytime in something that happens, a crux that happens in a story that changes the paradigm of how we view it, right? So it's not just M. Night stuff like, he was a ghost the whole time. It's not always stuff like that, but most shows have twists. Most movies have some kind of a twist, whether they're big or small or whatever. So having somebody say, Sugar has a twist, that's just telling me Sugar has characters or Sugar has actors. It's just like, yeah, okay, I figured it would. Most of them do. So number one, finding out that Sugar had a twist didn't impact my viewing of it at all. It's because most things have twists, so I expected there to be one. But let me propose this, Blakeberry. Let me propose this, that even if you didn't know there was a twist in Sugar, you would have figured out that there was some kind of big twist coming. I'm going to let you guys know, this isn't revealing the twist. This is letting you know something that's in the setup, okay? It's something in the first few episodes. The show itself clearly lets us know there's something very important about Sugar that we don't know. From constantly being worried, he doesn't want anybody looking into his background. Okay. But really, then too, when he has his reunion, when the reunion episode happens early in the series, that clearly is telling us as the audience, there's something big going on here that we don't know. So I would propose that if you're watching Sugar and you never heard that there was a twist in the show, you would know that there was a twist coming because of the way they set it up. Like right from the beginning about how they're keeping something important about Sugar himself secret from the audience. And of course, a little bit later, when the reunion episode happens, it's like clearly there's major information they're not letting us, the audience, know. So clearly you would have known a twist was coming anyway, right? Even if you'd never heard it, you would have figured that there was a twist coming just from watching the show. So again, I propose that hearing that there was a twist in Sugar doesn't really impact your viewing of Sugar at all. Number one, because most movies and shows have twists. Number two, just by watching the first couple of episodes of Sugar, it clearly indicates that a major twist was coming. What kind of twist? Who knows? But it clearly indicated there was a twist coming. So anyway, that's my take on it. But listen, all of us, Blaker, we all experience these things a different way. It hits us all in different ways. I hope you enjoyed the show. I really did like it. I had a really good time with Sugar, even though I guessed what and clearly you did too, even though we guessed what the twist was, I still really enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it. All right. BK Dan writes, John, I feel similar about the first Iron Man as it was about to come out that you feel about Pirates movies. Who's going to go see a movie about a B or C tier character? Like you, glad I was wrong, bring on the filthy. And listen, BK Dan, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to rewrite history here. Before the first Iron Man came out, I thought the same thing. I thought, and I feel bad, but I'm going to own up to it. What I said for like a year leading up to Iron Man coming out, the first Iron Man, is nobody is going to care about a poor man's Batman. That Iron Man is at best a B-level character, and he was at the time. Iron Man is a B-level character, and who's going to care about a poor man's Batman? Because essentially that's what I thought at the time. That's what Iron Man is. He's a rich guy with no powers that uses his money to have toys and gadgets and technology that helps him in his crime fighting. I mean, obviously Iron Man and Batman are very different characters, but I mean, you know, Iron Man's just a poor man's Batman, right? That was my thinking too, going into the first movie. And then we saw the first movie. And what Jon Favreau did with that movie is unbelievable. And it really did kind of kick off in a real way the MCU, and it's just spectacular. And yeah, it was the same way about Pirates of the Caribbean. I was just like, who cares about, you're making a movie based on a theme park ride? And then I loved the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Anyway, it's always great when movies surprise us that way. Some people get mad when a movie that they thought was going to be bad isn't bad. I'll never understand that. One of my favorite things, and when there's a movie coming out that I think is going to be bad, and I end up being wonderfully surprised by it. I don't get people who get salty about that. I actually love it. It's like one of my favorite things when I think something looks like crap, and then I watch it and I'm pleasantly surprised by it. It's one of my favorite experiences being a movie fan. Anyway, thanks for that, BK. Next up, the sock writes. Just had my birthday and my girlfriend's mom made me one of the greatest gifts I've ever gotten. A Ghostbusters or Ghost Rider hoodie with 2 different comic panels I picked out. Oh, nice. One on the front and one on the back. What's the best birthday gift you ever received? I think my wife has gotten me a lot of great gifts. My parents, obviously, over my lifetime have given me wonderful birthday gifts. Like cheap and expensive ones, whatever, but they've always given me great, wonderful birthday gifts. Anne has gotten me several wonderful birthday gifts, but easily my favorite. And I didn't get it on my birthday, but she said, consider this a birthday gift. A few weeks, but it was earlier in our relationship. And I was making my movie The Anniversary at the time. Or at least I was getting ready to make it. And Anne went out and got me. I don't know if I have it. Let me see if I do. Anne went out and got me. There it is. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen this picture in forever. Oops. Wrong way. Anne went out and bought me this chair. You can see me. This is on set. We were filming a scene, a conversation that happens in a hot tub. And so there we are on set. And there I am in the brown jacket with the little stupid director headphones on. And you see the back of my chair. It actually says my name on it. It says John Campea on it. Anne got me, knowing I was just about to start shooting my own little movie. Anne bought me my own director's chair with my name on it. It is, to this day, one of my favorite gifts I've ever got. It was a very personal gift. I still have it. It's on our main room over there. I still have the chair, and it was, that's my favorite gift I've ever gotten. And just because I mean, it's obviously not the most expensive gift, whatever, but it was just so perfect. And that's when I knew this girl gets me. And that to this day is my favorite gift I've ever gotten. Anyway, thanks for bringing that up, Sock, and thanks for sharing that. That sounds like an awesome thing you just got too. That's incredible. All right, Eggs with Ketchup writes, hey, John, remember As in Your Mouth? Oh God, I hate ketchup and eggs. I lost a bet with Ray a couple of years ago and I had to eat eggs with ketchup on it. I'll just don't get it, guys. I don't get it. That is repulsive. Ketchup on eggs is absolutely repulsive. I actually feel my gag reflex tensing up just thinking about it. Oh God, it's so bad. So bad. All right. Next up. Anonymous viewer writes, hey everybody, love the show. Thank you so much. I recently watched some nostalgia animated movies and I watched the first Happy Feet, also directed by George Miller. It was way more gorgeous than I remember. A mix of fun kids movie, a National Geographic, and beautiful music and visuals. Happy Feet is a little treasure of a film. Again, it's so weird to think about that the same guy who did Mad Max Fury Road, Furiosa. The same guy who did that made Happy Feet. It's a wonderful little animated film, and please take Anonymous's recommendation if you haven't seen it yet. Treat yourself, go see it. George Miller made it. Anyway, Gus's moviefarts.net.yum writes, a writing team for the series of Lanterns, we just talked about this a little bit earlier, confirmed Damon Lindelof, Chris Mundy, and ex-CIA officer Tom King, Batman for writer titles in DC. Of course, yeah, Tom King's been around DC a long time, but again, Damon Lindelof, who just did Watchmen a couple of years ago, and I think the TV show was better than the movie, and it won the Emmy for Best Limited Series, got a bunch of other nominations as well. Masterful job on that. Did a great job with it. And then, of course, Chris Mundy, who not just Ozark, but also True Detective and a number of other things. They've put together a really impressive writing team, So I'm going to be excited to see what they do. All right, next up. Will writes, not one for broadcast. Oh, well, then I should probably not read it. Somebody writing about being shadow banned. I will say this. If you have, I very rarely do any of the moderation on the channel. We do have a couple of people that go through comments and stuff like that. And if they see somebody attacking one of our crew or attacking other viewers or being intentionally antagonistic, stuff like that, we just ban people from it, because we believe our online chat and everything is a place for everyone, and it's a part of the user experience. And if somebody's coming in and just being a trolling kind of factor or whatever, we just straight up ban them. Now, I don't know the particular issues of your case, because again, we have people that go through and do the moderation for me. So I don't know it, but I will go through and read your message a little bit later. But if you've been shadow banned, it's probably because one of my moderators thought you acted in a way that was inappropriate, and we just decided to take it out of the chat. But I will look into that later. All right. Next up, we got Dildar, who writes, No Glorious. Writes, it's funny when certain people complain that politics are ruining movies, but still cheer for movies just because it adheres to their politics, which just means they want everything conservative, and if it's progressive, even a tiny bit, it's man baby time. Well, I'll say this, Dildar. Let's not pretend it's an only one side to that. Like, I'm not trying to play both side isms, but in reality, let's not pretend that it's only one group of people and never the other group of people, right? That what you just described is a human tendency. It's not just a left tendency or a right tendency. It is a human tendency. It is. But there is a truism to what you said. A lot of people will say, I don't want politics in movies. What they are really saying is, I don't want politics that isn't the same as mine in movies, right? I don't want movies with a message. I just want entertainment. Oh, until some garbage Christian movie comes out. Then, oh no, messages are great. As long as it's my message, as long as it's the message that I already agree with, then it's okay. What I don't want is any movie with a message that isn't consistent with my pre-existing dogma. And yeah, and then, by the way, it goes true the other way too. Like, somebody just brought up in the live chat, I miss it. Like, some people say like they boycott Kirk Cameron movies. Okay, that's fine. But there are people who go, well, I'm just not going to go see it because a Kirk Cameron movie doesn't portray a political message that is consistent with my dogma. Anybody who says that they don't want politics in their movies, what they're really saying is, left or right, what they're really saying is, I don't want politics that don't agree with my pre-existing dogma in movies. That's what they're really saying. And it's You know, it is difficult too, because these days, most movies do not bring politics. I mean, look, every movie has some kind of political message. George Lucas certainly did with his original Star. I mean, George Lucas talks openly about the politics that he brought into the original Star Wars trilogy, right? George Lucas has spoken ad nauseum about it. Just go read any book on the thing. But most movies are art, and art is an interpretation of the world through the lens of the storyteller. Whether it's a painter is telling a story, whether it's poem or music or movies or TV shows or comedy or whatever, art gives us a view of the world through the lens of the artist creating it. And that will inevitably include points of view of the world, ergo, like some kind of political thought or opinion. That's what art is. That's what art is. And so there's going to be that. See, that's why, and I know I'm going on long about this, but indulge it, because I think it's an important thing. I think it's important to see different perspectives in our art. Like, for instance, I always go back to this. Remember the Clint Eastwood classic movie, was it $1 Million Baby? Is that the name of it? The boxing movie? Is that the name of it? $1 Million Baby? Anyway, I think that's the name of the film. Anyway, correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat. Mike Tucci saying yes, so is GA. Okay, yeah, so $1 Million Baby, right? So in the movie, Clint Eastwood faces a dilemma. His girl, his fighter, got paralyzed from the neck down. And she asks him to end her life because she can't do it herself because she's paralyzed from the neck down. And she doesn't want to live like this. Assisted suicide is a massive political issue, right? Sanctity of life and all that kind of stuff. Big political issues. So in the movie, the character that Clint Eastwood plays is faced with a very difficult decision. He loves this girl. She doesn't, I mean, obviously he wants her to live, but she doesn't want to live. And he decides, ultimately, spoiler alert for a 20-year-old plus movie, he decides to help her end her own life. Now, at the time, that caused a lot of controversy. And there was even protests outside of the Oscars, because that movie got a lot of Oscar attention, obviously. Because people say Clint Eastwood is saying people who have physical handicaps are useless and they should just be put to sleep. It's like, that's not what Clint Eastwood was saying at all. Clint Eastwood just told a story where a fictional character faced a very difficult situation. And in that movie, that character made a decision that leaves us as the audience to wrestle with it. And we should, right? That's what art should do. Clint Eastwood wasn't saying anybody with a handicap should be put to sleep. That's not what Clint Eastwood was doing. He was telling a story to make us feel a dilemma, and maybe the character doesn't do what we would do. And there are a lot of people today that would go, well, that's not what I would want that character to do, so I don't want to go see that movie, or I don't like that movie. I mean, it's art, man. It's art. So I never want to watch movies or TV shows that only adhere to my own pre-existing political dogma, and everybody's got it. I want to see movies that show us characters that face dilemmas or choices, and sometimes I want to see those characters make choices that I wouldn't make, because it makes us have conversations. It makes us have thoughts. It makes us have to engage with the ideas. I like that personally. Well, John, why don't you like Christian movies then? Because they suck. Because they suck. And again, that is not an anti-religious thing. I developed that belief that Christian movies suck in Bible college. Me and several of my classmates in Bible college was like, man, you know what? We love the Christian faith, but boy, we hate Christian movies. Ooh, they're bad. Obviously, there are going to be exceptions. There are obviously going to be exceptions. But anyway, that's all that. I went off on my tangent there a little bit long enough. Let's move on, shall we? Next up, Lazarus writes, "Hey, crew. If you were in charge of movie theaters, what would you do to help bring people back to the theaters? I love Furiosa, but with the disappointing opening weekend, it seems like many people do not want to come back to the theaters." Here's the thing. People are going to the theaters when there's movies they want to see. Barbenheimer is a great example. I don't think Barbenheimer pre-2018, I don't think either of those movies are billion-dollar films. But Barbie, which nobody thought was going to be a billion-dollar film, Barbie comes out, just smashes box office records, becomes the number one film of that year. Oppenheimer, a period drama biopic piece, comes this close to being a billion-dollar film. I mean, when there are movies out there that capture people's imaginations, people are going to the movie theaters. Now, but let me address your question, because I do have thoughts on if I was in charge of the movie industry, what are a couple of things that I would do? There's from two different perspectives. There's the movie theaters and then the movie studios themselves. For the movie theaters, the number one thing you are selling besides candy, because did you guys know that the vast majority of a movie theater's money does not come from movie tickets because the studios take most of it. Understandably, the biggest amount where movie theaters really make their money is concession stands, right? An executive at CinemaCon once said, "We are not in the movie business, we're in the candy business." That's true, because that's where they have to make their money. That's how they keep the lights on, is concessions. But you are selling an overall movie-going experience if you are a movie theater, right? Movie theaters have done a very good job in recent years of making the theaters nicer, better seating, better projection, better screens. Still have improvements to do. Absolutely, still have improvements to do, but they've done a good job of doing that. Like the AMC theaters retrofits have all been really good, all that kind of stuff. But that's only one part of the experience. A person's movie-going experience starts the moment they pull into your parking lot, right? So I think my number one thing is if you tell people that showtime for a movie is 7 p.m., start your goddamn movie as close to 7 p.m. as possible. I'm not saying don't have any trailers, but the ArcLight theaters, they used to have a great rule: 3 trailers, then the movie, right? This whole thing, you are selling an experience. So a person's first experience is, "Oh, you told me this movie starts at 7. And I looked at my watch. My Furiosa screening was this is true. My Furiosa screening was supposed to start at 7. It started at 7:32. 7:32. 32 minutes after it said the movie started. That's got to change. Okay? That's got to change. For some people, you've ruined their movie-going experience already right there. Because this is not a free screening. This isn't Netflix ad supported. People paid $15 to $20 to come to your movie theater, and the very first thing that happens is you make them sit through 30 minutes of ads. That's the first thing they got to change. Change that. Change that right quick. Have better experience at the concession lines. How many times have we walked into movie theaters for an opening night of a big movie or whatever, and there's literally like 40 people in line at the concession stand? This happened to me not long ago. Yeah, we showed up about 10 minutes before the movie started. Now, granted, maybe we should have showed up a little bit earlier. I accept responsibility for that, but still. And there was like this huge line at the concession stand. I don't know about you, but when I go to a movie theater, I got to get my soda and popcorn. I just got to have it with lots of butter. Let me emphasize that again. Lots of butter. I'm afraid you heard me say some butter. What I said was lots of butter. Anyway, we got in line. I was in that line for 25 minutes. before, like from the moment I got in the line to when I said, thank you very much, taking my popcorn, it was like 25 minutes. That happens a lot in movie theaters. Guys, you make your money on on the concession stand, and people, that's getting some concessions for a lot, not everybody, but for a lot of people's part of the movie going experience, make that an easier and quicker process. I've seen some movie theaters experiment with systems like like at the AMC theater at Universal Studios. They have a really neat system where it's like they put out the soda and popcorn and candy. You go in and grab it yourself and then go to a checkout. And then you go, and it actually is much quicker. But anyway, they got to come up with ways to improve the concessions experience, shorten the amount of commercial time, because like 30 minutes of commercials is not the way to go. Not the way to go. You know, I put on a 2-hour show almost every day, and we have like 4 minutes of commercials on a 2-hour show. I think 30 something minutes is a little bit long. Anyway. So that's another thing I would change. Also, as a whole, studios and the movie theaters have to work on ways on getting the ticket prices down. Ticket prices aren't so bad. A lot of people will go, Campea, what are you talking about? Movie ticket prices are crazy. Listen, the average ticket price of a movie is still today less in Los Angeles than the cost of an average cocktail in a bar. And bars are still doing good business. When the cost of your movie ticket is still roughly the equivalent of one drink at a bar, and you get a 2-hour art experience in a movie theater for that price, do I think prices are a little bit high? Yes, but I still don't think they're completely unreasonable. When when literally going to McDonald's costs more than buying a ticket to a movie. Anyway, but concession stands, like you make your money concession stands, I get it, but when it's costing $15 to get a popcorn and a drink, your prices are getting out of hand. I don't think it should be $5, but I mean, you got to figure out a way to bring that down. And by the way, that also starts with movie studios not spending $240 million. My voice is starting to go. Not spending $240 million to make a movie. Because the more and more money, because a lot of people, whenever I bring that up, people say to me, John, why do you care how much they spend on making a movie? It's not your money. Yes, it is my money, and it's your money too. Because the more money that studios spend on making their movies means more money they need to make to recoup those losses. And do you think you think they have a bake sale? You think they have a little lemonade stand at Warner Brothers to try to make up for that money? No, they pass the costs on to you and me. You want to know part of the reason why ticket prices continue to go up? It ain't the movie theaters. It's the movie studios spending more and more and more and more, unnecessarily many times, on making those movies, and they pass the cost of those on to you and me. So don't tell me, why do you care how much they've paid? It's not your money. Yes, it is. It is my money, and it's your money. Because that's where they get it from to pay for those things. So I think part of the solution becomes, I'm not saying set a hard cap at $100 million, but I mean, it's got to start with studios getting a little bit more disciplined. Like, hey, maybe that $240 million movie, maybe you could have done it for 205. Because if you can make Godzilla -1 for pocket change, if you can make District 9 for the amount I would spend on a pastrami sandwich, if you can make those types of movies, I'm not saying every movie can be made that cheap, obviously not, but clearly you can make them more efficiently. And then maybe that cost stops being passed on to us as much. Anyway, I could go on that all day, but that's just a few thoughts. All right. Next up, the world of Tim Morrow writes, hey crew, Oppenheimer is the first Best Picture winner since Return of the King to make over $900 million at the worldwide box office. I didn't realize that, but yeah, that tracks. Just an interesting fact, if you ask me. Yeah, I think, listen, when you can get a movie that is both financially super successful and it just happened to be super quality, because a lot of times they're not both. But every once in a while, when you can get movies that do both, like a Django or a Return of the King or an Oppenheimer, that's when you get something like really stupid special. Because many times the best movies of the year don't enjoy huge financial success, but when they do get to have both, that's pretty cool. All right. Next up, Raymond Verada writes, the box office slump is happening everywhere. In the Philippines, a movie vlogger is sad seeing that there are no more long lines at cinemas. Commentators cite high ticket prices and streaming are to blame. You can't bring families with higher prices. You see, there are a couple of those things that I believe are easy cop-outs, but that just simply aren't true, right? Higher ticket prices were around when Barbie and Oppenheimer came out. When Super Mario Brothers broke over $1 billion, there were still higher ticket prices. Streaming has nothing to do with it, right? Streaming has nothing to do with it. The only thing, because, you know, they said the same thing when VHS came out. They said the same thing when DVD came out. They said the same thing when Blu-ray came out. They said the same thing when streaming came out. Streaming has nothing to do with it, except for the fact that you got a bunch of studios now that start rushing their titles onto streaming, thus conditioning the audience to say, you don't need to go to the movie theaters because we're just going to dump it on streaming in about 3 weeks. That's a problem. But streaming in and of itself isn't the problem either. Listen, we've got, in the next couple of months, movies like Inside Out 2, which is projected to make over $80 million on its opening weekend. We've got Despicable Me 4 coming, which is projected to make over $100 million on its opening weekend. We got movies like Deadpool 3 coming out, which has already broken records for the most first-day ticket sales of any R-rated film in history. We've got a number of films coming out that the audience is very interested in seeing. Let's see what happens then. Bad Boys. Michael Gonzalez is pointing out Bad Boys is projected to make over $50 million on its opening weekend. So I again would propose that there are reasons, like a movie like Fall Guy or Furiosa. But again, for Fall Guy and for something like Furiosa, we were talking about Furiosa a little bit earlier. You know, it's a movie based on it's a sequel to another movie that didn't do all that great. And this one's a prequel without the original stars in a genre type that doesn't appeal to everybody. I mean, so listen, I'll tell you what. If Inside Out 2, Deadpool, these movies coming out in the next couple of months, if Inside Out 2, Deadpool 3, and Despicable Me 4 don't make any money, we'll revisit this discussion. But I think we're going to see that these movies do make a lot of money. With the ticket prices the way they are, with streaming being what it is, I think we're going to see these movies make a lot of money. So anyway, we'll see. We'll find out. I certainly don't have all the answers. I have some guesses as to what I think is going to happen, but we'll find out. All right. Thanks for that, Raymond. Matan Valensky writes, that interview from Sarandos is a wreck on all grounds. This and the AI news from the last days from OpenAI and Google shows that a lot of Silicon Valley heads has worms in their brains. Not that AI is a repeat of the dot-com bubble. I mean, there are things that studio executives like Sarandos will say that are unpopular, yet nonetheless true. There's also things they say that are unpopular and really not true. You know, so there are some things in the Sarandos interview that he says that I can see not flying well with a lot of people, but I do think he's got a point regardless. I happen to just cherry pick out the thing that he talked about that I think is often a point of conversation amongst film fans that I think he was dead wrong about. No, there's no connection between the quantity of films we put out and the overall quality of our films. Yes, there is. Definitively, demonstrably, there is. So there was that. But that doesn't mean that everything he says. I think he's a very smart guy, but you're right. There's a lot. We're in a very precarious time right now, particularly with AI and what its relationship is going to be to the art as a new technology. So we'll see how it all plays out, Matan. Good point. All right. Next up. An anonymous viewer writes, not only is Into the Spider-Verse one of the best superhero movies ever, I'd say it's also one of the best sci-fi movies I've ever seen. No movie or show has used the multiverse concept as well as Into the Spider-Verse has. It's one of a kind, even compared to Across. I don't know, man. I think Across kind of upped the game. Now, you're preaching to the choir here, dude. I mean, you know how I feel about the Spider-Verse movies. I think they are both absolutely gobsmacked amazing. They're so good. I love them dearly, both of them. That said, I think I don't know that I'll call it like one of the greatest sci-fi films of all time. Personally, I respect that you do. Honestly, I think one of the reasons both those movies don't quite get the credit they're due is because they're animated. And that's unfortunate that that's still a thing in today's age. But I think if somebody can look past and forget the fact that those are animated films, the fact that Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse did not get nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I'm not saying they should have won. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they should have won. But I honestly believe it's a travesty that both of those films did not get nominated for Best Picture in their respective years. Because both, like I thought Into the Spider-Verse was a top 3 movie of the year it came out in 2018. And I absolutely feel that it was a top 7 or 8 of last year for Across the Spider-Verse. So I think it's a shame that they didn't get nominated. Again, I'm not saying they should have won. I'm just saying it's a shame they didn't get nominated. All right. The last couple of questions here still to go. Rafe from State Farm writes, I think something a lot of Miller fans ignored is the fact that when the trailer for Furiosa dropped, a lot of people complained from the CGI looking green screenish. That's certainly what most of my friends noticed who decided to wait for it on a streaming release. I'll be honest with you. Now, first of all, I do believe some of the CGI in Furiosa was a little wonky. I do. I think some of it was breathtakingly good, but there was some CGI in Furiosa that was a bit wonky. But I'll say this, Raph. I hear from thousands of movie fans a day, right? Here live on the show, people writing to me on social media, people writing in the comments, people writing to me directly. I hear from a lot of people every day. I haven't personally, and I'm just telling you my experience. I have not personally yet heard from anybody telling me they didn't go to see Furiosa because they saw some wonky looking CGI. I'm just telling you my experience. I have not heard a single person tell me that they didn't go see it because in the trailer, some of the CGI didn't look great. Again, I'm not taking away from your experience that you've had friends tell you that exact thing. I'm just saying for me personally, I haven't heard anybody say that. So I don't know that I can attribute that in any kind of major way to the struggles that Furiosa is having. Again, maybe Furiosa becomes the next Elemental. It finds its legs. People, word of mouth gets out about how good it is, and maybe it goes on to making some money. But I mean, I think there are several different explanations for it. I don't know that I agree that wonky CGI is one of the significant reasons. I don't think that's one of the significant reasons. But again, that's just been my experience. Your experience might be different. Thanks for sharing that, man. All right, next up. The Tick writes, our peak time showing for Furiosa on Saturday was quite empty to my surprise. 300 seat screen, only about 12 of us. Yeesh. Anyway, very good movie and made wish those rumors of George Miller directing Man of Steel 2 were true because I'm curious to see him let Superman loose. I mean, listen, a lot of people forget that George Miller, we talked about this on Open Mic on Saturday. George Miller was directing a Justice League movie where Armie Hammer was going to be Batman. They were literally weeks away from starting to film that movie. They were all the way through their pre-production. It was all cast, all ready to go. They were literally weeks away from starting to shoot when the plug got pulled. It would have been very, very interesting to see that movie. I've read the script. I like the script. It would have been very interesting to see that movie. But again, listen, if James Gunn announces someday that George Miller's directing a film there, I don't care if it's Man of Steel or a Superman movie or a Batman movie or an Aquaman movie or a Cyborg or a Wonder Woman. I don't care. Anything directed by George Miller in that universe, I would be interested in seeing. All right. AJ Rose writes, with Furiosa's underwhelming opening box office performance, do you think this puts the future of the next Mad Max film in jeopardy? 100%. Or do you think they continue and put trust into Tom Hardy's Max as a box office draw? Really want to see this continue. Again, AJ, I got to say this. Was the first one ever a draw? Like Tom Hardy's first movie that he did, Fury Road, first Mad Max movie, Fury Road, did not make that much money. Black Adam made more money at the box office than Fury Road did. And again, I acknowledge that sounds really weird, and it sounds like that can't possibly be true, but it's true. To quote one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, it's damn true. It's true. So Fury Road wasn't that big of a box office draw, despite the fact that the movie was fantastic. So, listen, unless Furiosa repeats the pattern of Elemental of having a very, very slow opening, but the word of mouth gets out that it's really great and it goes on to make almost $500 million, unless that happens with Furiosa, I think this is it. Like George Miller says he's got, like at CinemaCon, he says he's got one or two more that he wants to do. But honestly, unless Furiosa has the Elemental experience, I don't see Warner Brothers or anybody greenlighting another one. Like I just don't see it happen. Fury Road didn't make that much money. Furiosa is going to make even less. Again, unless it has some kind of big resurgence. So yeah, I think, AJ, that this is it. I think it's done. I hope not, but I think it is. All right. David M. writes, hello, John and crew. I saw The Strangers Chapter 1 last night. I heard it's horrible. Before the movie began, they played a hilarious Deadpool and Wolverine spot to ask the audience to silence their phones. Safe to say, that was the best part of my theater experience yesterday. They showed us that at CinemaCon, and I thought it was only for CinemaCon. So I'm sure some of you have seen it in theaters now, where it's Deadpool and Wolverine. I think they're walking through an underground tunnel or a sewer or something, and then they break the fourth wall with a cell phone ringing, and Deadpool goes, it's coming from out there. And it's actually Ryan Reynolds. And Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, you mother blank, beep, 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 like yelling at people to shut off their bleeping phones and blah, blah. I love it. I love it. And I'll be honest with you. I think more movie theaters should have that. See, I have mixed feelings about the Alamo Drafthouse for different reasons, but one of the things the Alamo Drafthouse does as a movie theater chain that I absolutely adore is they don't pull their punches with telling people to shut their effing phones off, right? They don't do this nice little, just a reminder, please silence your phones before thing. No. Alamo Drafthouse, they're like, shut your damn phone off or we're going to throw your ass out. And they do. They'll throw your ass out of the theater. You pull out your phone and start talking, they're going to throw your ass out of the theater. I love that they do that, and I love they're hardcore about it. I've always thought that every movie before a movie starts, an usher should come in and say, hey, everybody, we all know that every once in a while you'll get a complete jackass who doesn't silence their phone in a theater. And I just want to ask you all today, don't be that jackass. And yes, I'm talking to you. You don't silence your phone, you're the jackass. So please, everybody, silence your... Like, I wish movie theaters would be more direct and forceful about that. Guys, remember, in the movie, your attention should be on the big screen. So please silence your phones. I mean, that's nice. It's nice. But there should be more ads like this Deadpool and Wolverine one. They should be more forceful about it like Alamo Drafthouse is. Like, tell audiences, shut your fucking phones off. Unless your name starts with the letters DR period, you can be unreachable for 90 minutes. Unless you are literally a spinal surgeon where some guy just got in a motorcycle accident and the hospital's got to reach you right now, unless that's you, your life ain't that important that you can't have your phone turned off for 2 hours. And if you think you might be in a situation where maybe you need to be reached, when you feel your phone buzz in your pocket, step out. Step out. I mean, listen, I went to go see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's movie. What was it called? Was it called Skyscraper? The one where he's in the building on fire. I'm freezing on the name. I think it's Skyscraper. Guys in the live chat, help me out. What was the name of that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie? So I'm in that movie. And it was called Skyscraper. Okay, thank you, Patrick. Patrick was the first one to shout in that, yes, it was called Skyscraper. Thank you, Patrick. So I was in that movie because there's nothing else I could do at the time, that I had a friend in hospital fighting for their life. There was nothing I could do. There was no point in me being anywhere. So I went to go see a movie because I was supposed to see this movie at this screening and I needed something to keep my mind off things. So whatever. So I had my phone in my pocket. I made sure I sat by a seat that was close to an exit. And so when I would feel the phone in my pocket go off, I would quietly, because I made sure I sat myself by a door, I would slip out of my seat and step into the hallway, and then I would pull my phone out of my pocket to get updates on my friend's condition. If I can do that, all right, you've got no excuse. If somebody with very few manners, I'm a savage. I'm an uncouth savage. And if I, with very little social decorum, can do that, then you can do that. And I really wish movie theaters would do, and that's one of the reasons why I love that ad. I love that ad so much, because I think they should play it in front of every movie, not just a Deadpool one. All right. Our final question of the day, guys, comes to us from Jojo Giraffe, who writes, totally agree on quality/quality. Quality/quantity. However, I wonder if Ted's barometer for quality isn't Oscar noms. Perhaps to him, quality varies based on each film's target demographic. Oh, 100%. Listen, the measuring stick of whether you've got a good movie or a bad movie is not if it gets nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Right? I mean, you can have good movies. There are many good movies that aren't necessarily good enough to be Best Picture nominated, but you can have good movies. A great example of that, The Adam Project, right? Ryan Reynolds, Sean Levy's The Adam Project, right? Not a Best Picture contender by any stretch, but it's a good little movie. It's a good little movie. The problem is not having a lot of films that don't get nominated for Best Picture. The problem is having so many pieces of shit movies. Just horrible, horrible movies. And again, all film is subjective, so you can get a really horrible movie and have some people like it. That's fine. But even people that like that, en masse, you're going to find the vast majority of people will say, yeah, man, the vast majority of the movies on Netflix are pure, straight up gutter trash. They're awful. And the reason I brought up the comparison, let me see if I still have it here. Yeah. No, that's not it. Where's my comparison? Here it is. The reason I will bring up like these statistics is like, Yeah, man, they get like one Best Picture nominee for every 100 films they make. The only reason I bring that up is because Steve Sarandos said, oh no, our quality's doing fine. We've had 9 Best Picture nominees. Okay, yes. Yeah. But that's roughly like 1.1 or 1.2% of the movies you make. Every other studio has a much higher percentage than that. So, yeah, whether a movie is quality is not just based on whether it gets a Best Picture nomination. 100% I agree with you about that. The problem is that they make so many movies that are just absolute garbage. Like that, for instance, like the most recent, I love Chris Evans. But that Chris Evans, Ana de Armas movie they put out that I got all excited about because it's Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. What was the name of that one, guys? I don't even remember the name of it. Like, I don't even remotely remember the name of it. And you guys remember the name of that one? In the live chat, I know there's like a 10-second delay between when I ask and when you guys actually see it. So, Ghosted, that was it. Thank you, Telly. Telly was the first one to fire it in. Ghosted. As did a few others. How bad was that movie? Oh my God. That movie was so bad. It was so bad. And then they put out that one with Gal Gadot. Oh my God, that movie was gutter trash. And then they put out a movie with my 2 favorite movie stars in the world, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Ryan Reynolds. By the way, Gal Gadot was also in that one too, but it wasn't her fault. You got my 2 favorite movie stars in the world in a Netflix movie. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Ryan Reynolds in Red Notice. That movie is gutter trash. I love you, Ryan. I love you. You know I do. You're my favorite. But that movie was gutter trash. Like, and that's the problem. It isn't that they put out a bunch of films that aren't Oscar quality. That's fine. That's fine. The problem is they put out so much garbage. And when you put out that much garbage, by the way, Chris, it is not pronounced Godot. It's not pronounced Godot. I thought for a very, very long time it was pronounced Godot. Apparently, the proper pronunciation that I've heard her say is Godot with a T on the end. I know I said Godot for the longest time, and apparently I was wrong. Anyway, yeah, again, the problem isn't that they have movies that aren't Best Picture nominations. That's fine. It's that they put out so many movies that are just pure garbage. And for every one Red Notice, for every one Ghosted, for every one, damn it, what was the name of that one? I'm freezing on it. Anyway, for every one of those movies that comes out, there's 100 others that are just as bad, that don't have big stars in them. And the problem is they put out so many crappy movies that many times the few rare good ones will get lost in the shuffle. And it just leaves people like me with just this overall assumption because the data proves it out. Netflix movies are garbage. Yes, they've got 9 Best Picture nominees. Yes, they have movies like Adam Project or Old Guard with Charlize Theron. Remember that one? I really like that one. That's really good. The problem is for every one of those, you have 100 other pieces of gutter trash. And so it creates this impression of me, that's Netflix's fault, this is my impression, that Netflix movies are garbage. Because like this might be a little bit of hyperbole, but not a lot. 99 out of 100 of them are. When 99 out of 100 are garbage, you're forgiven for saying like using a broad statement like Netflix movies are garbage. You're forgiven for doing that. So I like, that's the problem to me. And I say this as somebody who's a big fan of Netflix. Why can't they do as good of a job with their movies as they do with their series? Anyway, there's that. All right, guys. With that down, that'll do it for today's solo installment. We got through it all by myself, guys. Got through it. My voice is about to go, but I'd hung in there just long enough for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Just want to remind you guys again, the great thing about the tip link is that you don't have to wait for the show to be live, because clearly like 90% of our audience can't watch the John Campea Show live as we're streaming like we are right now. So if you're watching this after the fact and you have a question you want us to address on the John Campea Show, again, as long as it's appropriate for us to address on the show, go ahead to our tip link anytime 24/7 at streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. And that'll do it for me, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Don't forget to join us again tomorrow. I'll be back with the regular crew. We're going to have Rob. We're going to have Jonathan. We're going to have Ray. Hopefully, you guys will join us as well. That'll do it for us for now, guys. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.